Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Trees podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 146. It's a little bit of a late night, and Justin, you are still on vacation. How's that going for you, bud?
I am traversing home. So we are a little over halfway home. Actually, just pulled into the Holiday Inn here in Beckley, West Virginia. So, uh, ironically enough, ran into one of the members of the morning crew and had to talk to him for a few minutes before we recorded here. So,
Yeah, it's very strange that you're coming back from vacation and you run into one of our lifting partners on his way to vacation. And you
yeah,
just so happen to completely unplanned be staying at the same hotel about what, 5 hours away, 4 hours away, something like that?
yeah, yep. He's 4 hours from home, and I'm 4 hours from home in opposite directions. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very, very random. So overall, how was it? Are you like getting anxious to get back to normalcy in everyday life?
Yeah, so week one was, we talked about it last week. Week one was good, but it was kind of crappy weather. And the room that we were staying in, which is our normal place, is just a little lower budget. So my daughter just wasn't meshing well. She didn't sleep well there. So the first week was kind of tough. So the second week was really nice. But yeah, about midway through this past week, I was ready to come home.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
not not nothing. I found myself starting to not get short with people, but feel like I was getting a little short because like I just wanted to go home. I was ready to get back to the gym, get back to work. Honestly, you know, it never stops. So everything I missed is just piling up. I got to get a lot of stuff done. So yeah, about midway, I'd say Wednesday this week, I was like, I'd be all right if we leave tomorrow. No problem. But we ended up waiting and leaving this morning, which is no big deal. But yeah, I'm ready to go home.
Well, and the reality is that kind of like you're suggesting about work never stopping is just because you want to go on vacation doesn't mean everybody else does. So,
Right.
I mean, it's the
And
same way with most professions, at least in my experience. I mean, training would be the one exception where it's not like you have makeup work, but in terms of school and stuff, it's almost more trouble to miss school in terms of workload because then it doubles up the workload when you get back to school. So it's kind of more
absolutely.
trouble than it's worth, essentially.
Yeah. And, I have a really, really good team that I work with. And honestly, me, I felt bad, because I was gone for 2 weeks and that's kind of unheard of in my profession. But because it was pre-established, they honored it, no problem. But so my teammates had to all pick up my slack for 2 weeks, so I felt bad. Because we have a lot of work, we have a pretty heavy workload as it is, and then to pull me out of the loop and add all my work onto their plate was, I felt like unfair. So I'm ready to get back.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that like something that type of person or that type of personality or work ethic or character trait or whatever, where you feel almost like guilty in a sense of leaving the work behind for other people and stuff. I think that's
Right.
kind of like almost a reflection of true leadership. And I think that it's like palpable and sensible for people. So most people are able to sense when they work with someone who feels like genuinely bad about missing versus someone who doesn't really care about missing. Even if it's kind of unspoken, they just know who's legitimate and who's not. Because,
Right.
I mean, we all know people and colleagues that we enjoy working with because of I don't want to say generosity that they provide, but I guess the leadership or the leading by example, where they're kind of
Right.
generous to the task by giving effort to all things, even when it's unrelated to them or whatever, and versus the people in the workforce in a particular job setting who are going, just to get by. And
Right.
it makes me think of a gym analogy where some of our mutual friends who I live with are much like that type of person that you are, where it's
Mhm.
supporting the good of the order. So we have people that we lift with who are super, super entrenched in the success of other people. So they want to see
Absolutely.
everybody else do well.
I agree. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to when you surround yourself with that kind of a person, for sure. I agree. I feel like.
Sometimes you can't choose it though. I mean, like you can choose your friends, you can choose your training group in terms of going to the gym and stuff, but we're all forced to work with people that we don't necessarily gel with or aren't very supportive or aren't very helpful or whatever. And it's been for me the kind of like the maturation process of getting older and being on job longer. I've gone through that kind of like ebb and flow of sometimes I'm good at dealing with it and sometimes I'm not, where like I get frustrated and
Hmm.
almost like kind of a little bit, essentially a little bit of self-pity sometimes, where it's like, why do I have to do all this work and so doesn't do anything? But then I understand that there's probably instances where I get lazy myself and people may feel that way about me. So I don't want to be living in a glass house and casting stones here, but you're going to have to learn to deal with difficult people and people that aren't as supportive and helpful as you are. The only thing that you can control is if you're one of those people or not. So
Right.
maybe that's my piece of advice for this whole spiel, is to just make sure that you're someone, you know, be someone that people are going to miss when you're not there.
Yeah, I always say I want to be the guy that everybody knows they can rely on.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you I feel like as long as I always center myself around being reliable, if I say I'm going to do something, it's getting done. And as long as I'm that guy, I'm happy with who I am and what I'm doing.
One thing that I was taught at a coaching clinic one time, and I hate when I like recall these quotes or these sayings or these pieces of advice or whatever on our podcast from different things that I've been or different people that I've met. And I can't recall exactly who told me it or when I heard it, because I think that it's important to give credit and I want to be like, effusive with
I know
that
what you
and
mean.
make sure that I give people a ton of support and praise for when they do something that's borderline life changing for me. But one of the things that I've thought about all the time, and it was in regards to coaching, it was coaching specific, but I've tried to translate it into other areas of my life. Um, but it was, if you were taking off of the coaching staff that you were on, this is when I was coaching high school football. If you were taken off the coaching staff of the team that you currently coach, what would be the ramifications of that? So if I get removed and I'm no longer coaching on the team, what would that look like? Would it be significantly worse off because the players lost a good mentor, a good leader, someone who was positive, someone who was encouraging, someone who held them accountable and also instilled a little bit of discipline? Would it be better off that you weren't there because there was a lot less negativity, someone who focuses on just fixated on minor details, not correcting minor details, but fixated on the negativity associated with minor details? Were you toxic to the culture that your team was trying to build? Or, and this sometimes is just as bad, because sometimes people who have toxic traits in terms of a coach are actually at least trying to correct the situation. Maybe they just don't know how, or they're not very effective at it. But sometimes this is even worse. Or would there be no change whatsoever, where you're not really doing anything? You're just there kind of riding the coattails, collecting albeit small, but collecting a paycheck and standing on the sidelines on a Friday night and not really doing anything effective or trying to do anything effective, so it doesn't change. So I've kind of taken that whole idea and I really thought about it initially. It was like, wow, man, what would happen if I was taken off staff? Like, would the kids miss me? Would the other coaches miss me? Would our football team win as many games? Would we win more games? Would we be stagnant and be the same? And it wouldn't make a difference either way if I was there or not. So I thought about that all the time and tried to think about that. Like honestly, that was something I thought about almost every day. When I went into
Yeah.
practice, I tried to remind myself, think about what this team would be like without you and try to make your impact something that would be missed. And so it kind of goes into the workforce then. If I wasn't a teacher and I was taken out of my classroom with my students and replaced with someone else, what would the impact of that be? And I think that when you think about workforce for you, same thing. If the people that you're in charge of, if you weren't in charge of them and they got someone, would that someone be better than you? Would they be a lot worse off now that you weren't there? And it really gives you like kind of that like hyper analytical and very, very focused mindset towards everything you do while you're at work, if you're thinking about it that way.
Right. Absolutely.
I just,
I think something that plays onto that is, you know, in the realm of leadership, right? Is I heard a quote, and I can't remember who told me it, but good leaders are always looking for the replacement. They're always looking to bring somebody up to their level or above so that they can step up. You're
yes.
always trying to train somebody to do your job or to be able to do your job better than you.
And I think that it's a two-way street also. I think that not only do you look for someone like from a leadership standpoint, okay, you're trying to find someone to replace you, but I also think that you need as workers or people that are lower on the totem pole who want to be the replacer. They want to go replace the leader. I remember again another beautiful nugget that I got from a coaching clinic, which is funny considering I haven't coached in years. At least from football, and I still remember all these like little nuanced things that I picked up along the way. Um, One of the things I was contemplated at a coaching clinic one time was a coach that said, and man, I want to say this one I could potentially give credit for. I want to say that it was Pat Fitzgerald, who is the current head football coach at Northwestern. Could be wrong, but I feel like it was him for some reason. Because I listened to him speak one year at a clinic in Pittsburgh, and it really, or maybe it was Columbus. Yeah, it was Columbus. And some of the stuff that Coach Fitzgerald said really resonated with me, and I kind of loved his coaching style ever since. But anyway, one of the things that he said in terms of his football team was he said that I want a staff full of people that are trying to take my job. And he didn't mean that in like a malicious sort of way. Like people are kind of conniving behind closed doors to try to take over, and they're almost like plotting or hoping or praying for his downfall. So that way, if he gets fired, maybe the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator could step in and take his job and be the head coach. Definitely not in a malicious sort of way, because that's obviously not the culture that anybody's trying to build. But what he was saying is, I want people that are trying to improve at such a rapid rate as a coach that they would have the capability of being the head coach in my position if they were asked to do so. And I thought that
Yeah.
that was interesting too, of not being, it kind of alludes to trying to get away from complacency. So,
Mm-hmm.
some people are completely fine with the role that they're in their professional setting or whatever, and that's fine if you're content there. Like the example that I would use with that one would be like me in education. Like I don't want to further myself up the chain of command in education. I don't want to be a principal or somebody in the administrative department, like a special ed director or athletic director or anything like that. I certainly don't want to go further than that and be a superintendent. Me, my ceiling is teacher. That's where I want to be. Now, that's not to say I'm going to not try to improve as a teacher every year, because I feel like I do that literally every day. But there's something to be said about people that are always wanting to move up, and that's great. And I think that he wants a staff full of those people, like a staff full of people that if you're a position coach, you're working as hard as you can so you would have the ability to be a coordinator. And if you're one of his
Right.
coordinators, you're working so hard that you would have the ability to take his job if necessary. And that kind of was another little nugget that always stuck with me. And I thought, yeah, that's really speaking to the importance of self-improvement and things in that line. So all these little all these little sayings and phrases that you pick up at coaching clinics really make you think about how you're coaching. Like I took so much more away from all those things more than X's and O's. Like the X's
Right.
and O's in the scheme and stuff, that was so trivial and such a small minutia of the big picture of takeaways and stuff I had. A lot of it was like culture building, and I would, because what you have is you'd have these breakout sessions. So first you
Mm-hmm.
listen to some like the big guest speakers. A lot of times they were like very popular like college football coaches, specifically at like Power Five conferences, like Big Ten coaches or whatever. Especially us living in the northeastern United States, and you would listen to them, and then afterwards they would have like what are called breakout sessions, where you would have them in multiple different rooms, and you could pick and choose who you saw speak. Like 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock was the first breakout sessions, and you got to look at all the coaches on the list from that were speaking from 9 to 10, what they were speaking about, and you could go whichever room you wanted to. And the overwhelming majority of the time, the two things I visited most were I wanted to see anybody strength and conditioning wise, obviously. And then I would also try to go to as many presentations on culture building as I could to find out leadership, find out culture building, because those are items that are completely applicable elsewhere. That's just not like a football thing, that's a workforce thing. Like being a good
It's a
leader.
life thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yep. Absolutely. To play off of what you were saying, Coach Fitzgerald, you took away from him. Just to give some credit to one of our past guests, Coach Williams, being a star in your role can play right into that mindset of be the best at your position so you can potentially do something else.
Yes, absolutely. And I find myself, it's funny because I find myself loving sports for that particular reason about how much they can teach you and how much they can prepare you for life. And I know that that sounds very corny because you hear that a lot, but truly sports are a microcosm of the big picture. And you hear it every day or every week when we record that I can almost make an analogy for pretty much anything into a sports phrase or into a sports analogy.
Absolutely.
And because life
Especially
is
a team
analogous to
sport.
sports. What'd you say?
Especially a team sport because very few sports or life activities are solo.
Nope. Yeah, you're right. Never.
I mean,
Very rarely.
you could even argue that wrestling, as a sport it's it's a solo sport. Like the activity itself, each individual match is solo, one person versus another, but it's a whole team. Everybody's score accumulates to building the team's score. So,
Yes.
and then it's same thing with work. Like each person in a job in a company has a position, has a task. But if one person fails at their task, most of the time the company fails or at least suffers because of
Yep.
it. It's all a team sport. Everything we do is team. Families. If only one member of the family is working to further the better good of a family or the betterment of your family, the whole family is going to suffer because not everybody's playing the same game.
Well, and all the guests that we've had on over the past couple years plus, all of the guests that we've had on, you see a lot of consistencies, which was obviously the entire goal of the podcast was to get successful people on and see what they have in common and try to find some best fit lines that we could kind of model ourselves after. And you'll notice that so many of them, and I know we've talked about this before, an overwhelming majority of them always spoke about the importance of family. And when you
Yeah.
say that, I think that some listeners could possibly get upset, not upset, but almost like disappointed because they may not have the most supportive family in whatever role they're doing. But I think that it's important to point out that family doesn't just mean your immediate biological family. Like when I think of my family, I obviously think of my relatives and my loved ones, but loved ones doesn't just mean people who are biologically related to you. That could be your gym family or people that you work with that you consider to be family. Because I know you and I, some of which have overlap, we have people in our lives that aren't our family, but we still consider our family essentially.
Right. Absolutely.
And so it's important to surround yourself with the right types of people. I mean, that's probably up until this point one of the most common themes that we are hitting on all the time is family and surrounding yourself by the right people and being successful because you're a product of your environment. So, how do you set up your environment and all that stuff? And I think that over the years, you get much better at kind of sifting through the BS, so to speak, and knowing who's worth keeping around and who's not. And we've even had full episodes of podcasts where we've talked about how to kind of mitigate the number of people in your life that aren't helping. Like, how do you take that number down and how do you approach it carefully and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
So,
I
you,
agree.
my friend, are on your way home. It's been a late night for you because you've been traveling a lot. So, I think this would be a good opportunity to cut to a quick commercial break so you can get on with some sleep because I feel like we'd be hypocrites if we were neglecting our sleep, which you and I do so often because our schedules call for it. So, let's not waste any more time. We'll go to a quick commercial break and we'll potentially talk more about the importance of families and the importance of leadership and all the sorts of things that we can kind of analyze in the workforce and in life when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. All right, man, prior to the break, I've talked about a lot of stuff. Talked about you coming home from vacation and getting back to the workforce, and that kind of just engendered a conversation about the importance of being someone that would be missed, which led us down the path of leadership and led us down the path of family, coincidentally enough. And so here we are. You're on your way back home, and I got to ask you, because I've never been away for that long. I very rarely go on vacation. When I do, we're talking maybe 4 days tops. So I got to ask you, being gone that long, I wouldn't be able to do it mentally. I would have too tough of a time because I get a lot of anxiety when I'm not in routine. It's a very bad character trait that I wish that I was able to get out of. So I got to ask you, what are you going to do when you get back? What's like the first order of business? What's causing you, maybe not the most anxiousness, but what is causing you the most concern? Like, oh, I need to get back because I have to do this, this, and this. Even maybe it's not even work. Maybe it's just because I want to sleep in the comfort of my own bed, or I want to see my dog. Or what are the things that you have on the to-do list immediately?
To-do list immediately. Yes, sleep in my own bed sounds fantastic. But right after we get home, so we're gonna get home tomorrow about 2 o'clock, I think. That's the plan, anyways. I'm gonna unload the truck and everything, and my dad's getting married on October 1st, so I have to go to Pittsburgh and get fitted or get my final fitting for my suit before
Uh-huh.
the wedding, and come home and watch the Buckeyes beat up on Notre Dame. Obviously.
Oh, that's
Um.
right. That's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Um. But the one thing that's been causing me the most anxiousness about being away is outside of work, like you said, would be I'm a homesteader. So I
Hmm.
have a huge garden and invest a lot of it's a labor of love. I have a lot of time and effort and money invested in a really nice garden that should have provided us a large, plentiful harvest. And I had to have my brother pick a lot of stuff while we were on vacation because I didn't want it to go to waste, and neither did he. He was staying. He did some house sitting for us, and he said, "Man, your garden looks great, but a lot of stuff needs picked." So he picked a bunch of stuff and froze it for me,
Yep.
like tomatoes and stuff. So I got a lot of canning to do to put up some vegetables for the winter. So we have a lot to do in the garden as far as that goes, and obviously get this truck unpacked and get some laundry done so we can get back to work. But also get back in the gym.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
Shoot, it's been 2 weeks. Now I gotta say I've had 20,000 plus steps a day for the last 2 weeks. So
Nice.
not that that's training, so to speak, but it is a lot of exercise. It's actually probably close to 12,000, 10 to 12,000 more steps a day than I have been doing before vacation. So,
Hmm.
um, I'm ready to get back in the weight room. That's the one big thing that's on my list. But yeah, the garden, take care of my garden and sleep in my own bed and get back to the normal routine of getting up early, doing some workout, and then get back to work. You know,
Yep.
I
How
think
was your
that's the big
mental
thing.
state over the course of, in regards to that stuff? Like, how was your mental state? Did you feel a lot of not necessarily nervousness, and I don't want to use anxiety too liberally and lightly, um, but did you have a lot of worry in a sense about going back, or were you completely content the entire vacation, or was it just kind of a gradual, slowly starting to say, okay, I think I'm ready to get back now?
Uh, you know, I don't know. I'd have to say I was at times it was abrupt, and I felt like, "Ah, man, I want to go home." And then at times it was gradual. So it was kind of a little bit of both. Um, when we were busy and going and my kid was having a great time, I wasn't so much thinking about leaving. But when she was freaking out and not sleeping, the whole first week, we didn't sleep the whole first week. It was not a vacation the first week. She would not sleep in her pack and play. She would not sleep in bed with us, which we've never done. Um, she just wouldn't sleep. It was the hotel was a little too loud, not dark enough, not temperature controlled enough. Like the environment just was not indicative for her to sleep. So the first week was very tough. The second week, we all slept a little better and more, and my daughter slept a lot, which was great. So I didn't have as much want to go home. Like the first week, we were ready to go home in the middle of the week, like literally pack up and just come home because she wasn't sleeping. But we pushed through and mustered through to get to the second week, and the second week she slept great, and she loves the ocean. This for 18 months old, this kid can swim, obviously with flotation device on, but she kicks her feet, she moves her hands, she actually moves around the pool. She loves being out in the ocean. Like I had her out questionably too far, probably. I don't want people to think I'm a child abuser or anything, but it was all safe, obviously. But she loves it. She likes the waves. She likes being in the water. So it was a good time. Like me and her really had a lot of time in the pool and in the ocean because I love water. So um, I didn't have a whole lot of want to go home until towards the end of this week. But yeah, like I said, I would say to answer your question, it was more gradual than not, except for the beginning of the first week and stuff.
Yep. Now, you talked to me too briefly before the episode when we were kind of texting each other saying, "Hey, what time are we doing this call tonight?" Et cetera, et cetera. Wanted to get it in before Saturday because you're doing a lot of traveling Saturday again. And then, like you just mentioned, you got a lot of stuff to do on Saturday. So we wanted to get in. And when we were texting, you said that you had a question that you wanted to ask or that you were asked. And you thought it might be helpful for some of our listeners because we have a wide array of listeners from all different demographics, all different interests, all different walks of life. So you mentioned asking that question. So you want to go ahead and pull the trigger with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think this is a question that you'll be able to answer better than I did. I gave the best answer I could with my style of weight loss. But so I was asked by an older gentleman on my second week of vacation. We were talking, and I could tell that I'm still a big guy, and I could tell that he didn't quite understand me because I was still like walking around and like I'm a lot better shape than most big guys. And so I kind of just gave him my little bit of backstory, how much weight I lost, blah blah blah. And sitting there around the pool, he had asked me, he's like, "So how does somebody lose weight if they drink, or they eat bad?" And I was like, so we had a little bit of conversation, and basically his question was, he needs to lose weight, and he doesn't know exactly what to do because he doesn't want to quit drinking like alcohol. So my answer was to try to drink clear liquor and 0 calorie additives to it. So like, Crystal Light, stuff like that. And then basically take all carbohydrate and sugar dense foods out of your diet because you're not willing to remove the alcohol from your diet. So you're getting the sugar and carbohydrates from your drinking, obviously.
I
But
think to a large degree that's fair. I think that's actually I like that that is the question that was asked because it brings up one of our frequent talking points that you and I have hit on a couple of times is how there's no need for complete sabotage of a diet or of a training program when things go awry.
right,
So we've talked before about how one meal doesn't have to ruin a day, and one day doesn't have to ruin a week, one week doesn't have to ruin a month, whatever. If you let's do the nutrition part. If because a lot of people are under the impression that if they can't do everything optimally, then they shouldn't do it at all. Like, oh, well, I'm going on vacation and it's going to be difficult for me to make healthy food choices. So I'm just going to say screw it and eat whatever I want. Which, if there's a little bit of a decompression mentally and a little bit of a relaxation and break that comes along with it, then fine. But if you're wanting to stay on a diet and wanting to stay clean just because you have a few cheat items doesn't mean you have to scrap the whole thing and say, ah, well, I just ruined the whole week anyway, so let's just do it, whatever. Same thing with the gym. Just because you have a bad day of training doesn't mean you have to take off the whole week and just say, ah, well, I'll just get back at it next week. So I kind of look at alcohol consumption, just specific to the question, the same way, where if that is your vice and that is something that you have difficulty giving up and it's a lifestyle thing that you enjoy, then you can still keep all the other fundamentals of weight loss in check and be okay. So let's just use that for example. Let's say that's the only bad thing, or the only, I don't want to say bad, I apologize if people get offended by that. The only unhealthy habit that you present with is very frequent alcohol consumption. If your
Right.
exercise programming is good, and your so that's strength training good, cardiovascular training good, just general healthy movement practice is good, and your nutrition is good, and your stress management is good, and your sleep patterns are good, and you are proactive about your health care and taking care of your body in every other regard, the alcohol is going to be a very, 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 very or very non-limiting factor.
Right.
Like it's not going to restrict you probably in the slightest bit if all those other things are perfect. Now, the chances of you getting all those other things perfect are very, very slim, but you understand the point that I'm trying to make here. So, really, with questions like that, I don't think that there's any specific way. Like your suggestion or your answer is better for that guy. You gave a correct answer, but I wouldn't necessarily, me personally, wouldn't give a specific answer as more as I would give the ideology, like paint the philosophy here. Like, okay, man, you say that it's going to be hard to lose weight because you have frequent and potentially excessive alcohol consumption. I don't know if I'd use the term excessive because I don't know, but someone who can't give it up at all feels obviously a dependence. They're probably doing it frequency and high volume. So let's say he drinks a lot. That's okay because you can still get more fit than you are and you can still make progress if all those other factors are in check. So instead of just worrying about the alcohol consumption and trying to cancel it out, like whether you're drinking alcohol or not drinking alcohol, regardless of what your unhealthy habit is, all the other habits of your day-to-day life should try to be fixed or try to be optimized. Like let's say I have addiction to ice cream, I guess, and I eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream every single night. If the rest of your nutrition is good, you do regular strength training and or cardio, you get good sleep, your stress management is good, you eat 100% healthy outside of that nightly Ben and Jerry's, that one Ben and Jerry's every night probably is not going to make or break you. You're probably
Right.
going to be okay once you hit metabolic flexibility, which is where your metabolism is flexible enough to accommodate things like that just because you've been practicing it for so long. So, really, when it comes to that type of a question, like I said, you gave a better answer and a more specific answer where I would kind of take it broad and a little bit of like a more like broad spectrum answer and say, listen, dude, that's not don't use that as an excuse to not be in shape. Do the other things and just do them how anybody else would. You don't have to have any special plan because you drink alcohol. Your plan of fixing your nutrition, your training, your sleep, all that stuff's going to be the same as everybody else. Now, you could adjust a little bit differently, like you talked about lowering carbohydrate intake, and because you're going to be replacing those carbohydrates with alcohol. So my point is, I think that he was saying, how do I lose weight if I drink? You're going to lose weight the same way everybody else is, training and
Exactly.
nutrition. So I don't
And that
think it really depends. There varies that much, honestly.
yeah, and that was basically my overall statement to him was that, oh, okay, cool. So you have a fix, no big deal. Let's just work around it, and that was what I was trying to get was the workaround. I just, I like your answer of the big picture. It just because meal three is bad doesn't mean meal one, two, and four have to be bad, or just because Tuesday's workout was missed because you had to work early doesn't mean you have to skip on the whole week. I like how you focus on the big picture. Take every 24 hours and say, am I optimizing on every minute of the day? And then bring that down to, am I optimizing on the seconds in every minute? Yeah,
Certainly.
I know that kind of is crazy, but the one thing, that in what's I remember exactly what sparked this conversation was he was looking. I had my phone sitting on the table between us, and he looked down and seen my phone, and my screensaver on my phone is a black screen with white numbers on it. He said, "What is that number on your phone?" And I said, "It's 86,400." And he's like, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "That's how many seconds are in every day." And he's like, "Okay, what's that mean?" I was like, it's a constant reminder that there's 86,400 seconds in every day, and I am not going to waste a single one of them." And that's how we got onto the topic of, just because something goes wrong doesn't mean you have to waste the other 85,000, 86,399. You have to maximize on your output,
Yep.
and that's kind of what got us on that topic. So I just thought that was a cool question, and it's been a while since I've got a weight loss specific or a journey or my journey specific question. Like from somebody that I didn't even know this guy. He was just a guy I met while I was on vacation. But it's been a minute since I've got that direct question from somebody. So I was like, that's a good one to bring to the air and kind of get Charlie's point of view on it and see, if there's something else I could tweet this guy or text this guy later and give him some more insight or more info.
And I think that that's a really good place to wrap it up with some actionable steps. Not even an actionable steps as in something specific to do or to try, but just maybe go through, look at your bad habits or habits that you think are less than optimal, and don't use those as an excuse or a crutch to mess up everything else. If you have one or
Right.
two things that you do that aren't the best, that's okay. Just forget about them. No, I don't want to say forget about them, but if you don't feel like you're at the right point in your life to get rid of those bad habits, that's okay. Just focus on establishing good habits, and pretty soon, I really think those bad habits are going to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. Because you're
All
going to
right.
feel so good about the good habits.
Yes, sir. And then you won't want to do those self-destructive types of behaviors anymore.
Right. I agree.
So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 146. As always, we appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable.